I love Richmond, and there are so many fascinating characters who really only get a few seconds on the news. I've been a reporter for more than 20 years. Some of that time was spent here in Richmond, which I now call home, and I am working on a new podcast. Untold is to sort of maybe introduce you to voices and people that you might have seen, but tell you stories that you haven't heard. I loved my time at Channel 6. I was an investigative reporter, and I was dogged in my pursuit of everybody. I used to chase people onto elevators and through parking garages, and when I went to City Hall, all the blinds would close if they saw me coming. It was a lot of fun, but this is a different flavor. You get all this time to really peel back layers and do a deep dive and figure out who this person is and what's informed their decision making, what's made them impactful, what's made them important, what makes them purposeful, what makes them interesting to Richmond. Those things can't always come out in just a brief soundbite for a newscast. So this gives us a chance to sit down, have a conversation, go on a journey, really dig deep, and kind of find an understanding of who this person truly is.
I'm Katie Beck. I hope you'll join me for Untold, available on Wtvr or wherever you get your podcasts.
He's a man that needs no introduction. Doug Wilder has broken the mold several times in his historic life. The first Black member of the Virginia Senate, then the first Black American elected governor, and later the first Richmond mayor elected by a popular vote. Wilder recently turned 94, but he's still fierce on politics and still unfiltered on his opinions. Today, he pulls no punches as we discuss state races, the pitfalls of local leadership, and the power of imagination. Governor Wilder, thank you so much for being with us today. I am honored to sit down with you, sir.
Well, I'm glad to be with you, and when you get my age, you'd be honored to sit down with anybody. This doesn't put you down. But I'm just
you're
saying,
a spring chicken.
Pleased.
Oh,
No, I tell you what, that chicken ain't got no spring in it no more.
Well, let's share with our audience just how old are you? I'm getting 94.
I'm 94. Yeah,
94.
I'll be 95 in January.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
I feel great, and I'm very, very fortunate to have had pretty good health the entirety of my life, and a few setbacks every now and then, but I'm still here.
I think most people would be delighted to have the mind and body you have at 94, sir.
I'm very fortunate.
Yes,
very
you
fortunate.
are. Well, I am so glad you're here because we have so many topics that we want to pick your brain on. With your experience in politics, we're hoping you can share some opinions on
we'll see
what's going on. Yeah. And we know we can count on you for the unfiltered version, which we like too. We like people that just say it like it is.
For the zinger.
The zinger, exactly. And I think we'll start, with our upcoming gubernatorial election here in Virginia in November. It's shaping up to be an interesting race. We've got primaries coming up on June 17th. And we know some of the candidates. We know how some of this is going to shake out. What are your thoughts on the gubernatorial race? Are you feeling good for Democrats? Do you think it's in the bag, or do you think it's anybody's game?
Well, as you know, we conduct polling at the Wilder School. As a matter of fact, we've got a poll either out this week or going out soon, and asking the people to pass judgment on many of the things that we will be talking about. And I think, as it relates to the Virginia election, I wouldn't say it's in the bag for anybody. I would think that no election is in the bag in Virginia. That's why we don't have repeat gubernatorial elections, or governor cannot succeed themselves. And that's to freshen up the electorate to the extent of giving them a different choice on a regular basis. So what I see going in is the Democratic's choice will probably be in all probability Abigail Spanberger.
Yeah.
I think on the lieutenant governor's side, one of the candidates called me this morning and he felt very good about his area of the state, and
which one would that be?
That was in the Tidewater area.
Aaron Rouse?
Yeah,
yes.
And
he's had some good early voting turnout numbers.
That's what he was telling me. And I've not seen the turnout numbers for the current mayor of the city, I'm not the current mayor, former mayor, Stoney, have not seen those numbers.
He feels confident too.
Well, you have to say that.
Right. Yeah. That's what he said here. We had him on, and he said he feels pretty confident. But 8 years as mayor, he's got a record that he's got to defend.
It'll be there.
Yeah, it'll be there. Right.
You either run on it or run away from it.
Right. What do you think in his case he'll do more of?
Well, I don't know. I have not talked with him, and I've seen him at several events. But what I always say is two things. One, politics is more about money and people. Money to the extent that you can't name, and I say this to the students when I speak in their classes, there's nothing you can name at a political nature, of any nature, quite frankly, that doesn't involve money. Sometimes they think they get me, and they come up with something, and I show them in the bottom line that money is there. So the real question that I see it as it relates to state and local elections is, what's happening to the people's money? And how is that being spent? And that's how I think the electorate wants to see and wants to hear. What are you doing? For instance, education. Who doesn't like education? But what are you doing? And it's not a question of money. I know from having been mayor that Virginia was ranking the cities and localities. Richmond was next to the bottom. Petersburg was right there with them, and Charles City. But Richmond was spending $92 million more than the state average. So spending money on something doesn't mean that you're spending it for it.
Right.
That's one of
you're
the
not
arguments.
really fixing the problem.
Right. That's one of the arguments that's going on now. And then at the national level, in terms of the money, and with the amount of money, who measures it? Who determines it? Who gives the accountability for it? And that's what I'd like to see more of the candidates doing as it relates to addressing the needs of the people for health care, employment, housing. Right. Is the money being spent wisely? If not, what are you going to do?
What's your plan?
What's your plan? I can best tell what your plan is by telling me what it was. What have you done? When did you do it? And how did you do it?
While my parents are still looking and talking to other people, I'm sitting at a table by myself, adjacent to where the pool was, and realizing that this is bad.
It's a mystery that has haunted a Central Virginia family for more than a quarter century. In the spring of 1998, a young woman named Amy Bradley took a Caribbean cruise with her parents and brother. Early one morning, she vanished without a trace. Now, Amy's story is the subject of a new Netflix docuseries. Today, we sit down with her brother, the one who went on that cruise, for a captivating interview about the strange and disorienting days that followed the disappearance, the theories as to what really happened, and why he is convinced that his sister is still out there all these years later.
Well, welcome to Untold. We are here with Brad Bradley. Thank you so much for being here. I know you've been making the rounds.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you for having me.
Doing a lot of media on this story. As we've set up in our intro, you are the brother of Amy Bradley, the subject of a recent Netflix documentary. And we're going to get into it today. We're going to talk about the story of how your sister went missing, and also the theories of whether she may be out there. Maybe she's alive. Maybe she was kidnapped. Maybe she left willfully. Maybe she didn't. Lots of unanswered questions, but I think you're probably one of the best people to speculate on what's real in this story. So if you've watched the Netflix documentary, you are now getting the Untold version, the behind-the-scenes version. And we'll start out, just tell us sort of the scenario of this cruise. It was 1998. It was a family trip. Everybody was excited.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a family trip initially. My parents work in the insurance business, and they had qualified through their production for the year for a trip, for a cruise. It was like a prize for
a bonus
for their work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So initially, Amy and I were not included in that prize. My mom and dad kind of went above and beyond to make sure that we could come with them. They got special permission. They were granted that permission. Now I'm sure they kicked themselves for having done so. But yeah, so it wasn't like a family trip that was personally arranged and all that. But anyway, we were invited to go with them. Both of us very excited. I know there's been some reports I've seen online. There's plenty of misinformation online about how Amy felt about going on the cruise. I can assure you we were both excited. I had been on a cruise a couple years prior. A buddy of mine and I in high school went on a volleyball beach cruise and had a fantastic time.
You were 21 and she was 23
Correct.
at this time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we, Mom and Dad told us that they had gotten permission for us to come with them. We're all in right away. Now, Amy and I had some reservations because neither of us like to fly, so we knew we had to get there. But we're like, we're doing,
Game
definitely we're on.
Yeah.
And then Amy was not a fan of the ocean or being in it. She was a longtime swimmer, as we both were. She coached the swim team. She was a lifeguard. She was proficient in the water. But you put her in the ocean, and she's scared to death of what's in the water that she can't see.
Sharp objects, all kinds of
Oh,
other...
I mean, you step on a crab, and she's going to lose her mind.
Yeah.
So, she would never go in the water, very deep. If she did, she'd be hanging on somebody, so she didn't touch the bottom and all that kind of stuff. So she didn't like the ocean, but she decided, big deal. We're not going to be in the water. We're on a boat. So my parents flew down earlier than us because they had already had different plane tickets and we had to get separate tickets. So she and I flew down together from Richmond to Miami, from Miami to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and had a great time talking on the plane about what we were going to be doing. Since I had a prior cruise, like Amy looked at me like I was a cruise expert, and
Right.
which I certainly wasn't. But she was asking me a lot of questions about what kind of things we're going to be doing, and I'm like, I really don't know. I've not been to these islands. So, we're listening to music on the way down. We're sharing stories. We're having a good time. And we get to San Juan. We board the boat. Super exciting. It's huge. I think at the time it was one of the largest cruise ships in the world. Now it's by far not. But,
Right.
we do the whole muster drill, and everybody's in their life jackets and the roll call and the whole thing. So that everybody was very excited. We were
Right.
having a great time.
And things were going perfectly fine, perfectly normal. One night, the two of you decide to stay out a little bit late and have fun in a nightclub on the boat.
Yeah, so, day one, you're at sea.
Right.
And, we're on the boat, we're messing around in the casino, we have dinners with, everybody, my parents' coworkers, and, just having a good time, waiting to get to the first island. We get to Aruba, which is the first stop. We get off on Aruba, and instead of hanging around on the pretty beaches, which are very few, by the way, you think of Aruba as this like Caribbean paradise. If you get off the beaten track, you're in the desert with wild dogs and wild goats and tumbleweeds and cliffs, and not a pretty place. So, but we decided to rent a small SUV and go explore. We get lost, and we're in a convertible, open-top, small SUV, kind of like an Isuzu Sidekick kind of thing. And we're getting burned to death by the sun. We don't know where we are. We don't know where we're going. We're out there for like an hour and a half, turned around backwards, and we're joking like we're going to die here in the desert. We're not going to make it. So it's this whole, we're all kind of laughing nervously about if we're going to get back to the boat on time and all this stuff. So we finally make it back. We get on the boat. You'll see the clip of me passed out like a zombie.
That was right after that
we got back from
voyage.
that
Okay.
sun burning.
Got it.
And so later, after we had kind of napped it off, we get ready for the formal dinner.
Right.
So, I had a tux, and Amy had her nice dress, and we all got dressed up and go to dinner. Had a nice time. On the cruise, there was special attention from our personal wait staff toward Amy. It was, and we joked around the table like, hey, if anybody needs any refills
Amy.
or extra butter, just tell them Amy wants it, and it'll be it'll be right here. So, we did that formal dinner. After that, we took pictures, which later disappeared mysteriously when we went to pick them up. They were gone. But we got, after the formal, we went back to the room, changed out of our formals, and got ready for the pool party. So there was supposed to be this big, thing up on the pool deck where there was dancers and music and performers and drinks and all this kind of stuff. So we got dressed for that, went up to the pool deck where essentially everybody was. It was loaded down, and having drinks, eating food, listening to music. There was a limbo contest that
you won.
I ended up winning. Yeah, it was hilarious. But so
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So we're all just joking around, having a good time. And during that pool party, we were going up to the band called Blue Orchid, for which Yellow was the bass player, requesting songs. And they were taking requests, and they say, "Oh, we don't know that one. Okay, we'll do that one." And we're back.
Yellow, just for clarification, is the bass player's nickname.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, Alistair Douglas, who now apparently goes by Christopher Douglas for some unknown reason. So fast forward, my mom and dad decide it's about midnight or whatever. Pool party's coming to an end, so they walk over to tell Amy, "Hey, we're going to go to bed. We love you. We'll see you tomorrow." She said, "We'll love you too." Okay. So they go to bed, they tell me goodnight, and Amy and I, everybody kind of shifted up to the dance club, who was going to stay up. And so we left the pool party, we go up to what they referred to as the disco lounge, I think. But anyway, we go up to the dance club, listening to music, dancing, talking to people. I remember seeing Amy and Yellow come off the elevator because I was up there first. The video that you see of Amy dancing with Yellow, I was distracted doing my 21-year-old thing, talking to girls over here. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't, unfortunately, in a protective mode. Amy was my, big bad sister who didn't need anybody to help her with anything.
Sure. The Bradleys, when did they become aware
this is super interesting.
That this tape existed?
Their story was first televised in December of 1998 on America's Most Wanted, big TV show in the States here. The Amy Bradley story was told. And of course, America's Most Wanted has a hotline. If you know anything, please contact blah, blah, blah. And I had told this whole story to my brother. And my brother watches more television than I do. And he comes by my office the next day and he's like, "Hey, did you watch America's Most Wanted last night?" I said, "No, Tim, I didn't." And he goes, "Oh, they did that story about the missing girl, but they didn't use any of your footage." I'm like, "Oh, I would have thought they would have used that, considering it was given to the authorities." But they did not. Then, in the summer of 1999, the Bradley story was showcased on Unsolved Mysteries. And apparently America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries deal with their hotlines differently, because my brother, again, who watches more crap TV than I do, he calls in and he goes, "Hey, I got a tip. My little brother has footage of the missing girl dancing with the prime suspect." And he gets a phone call from Iva Bradley afterwards. And she says, "I understand y'all have footage of Amy." And he says, "Well, my brother does." And she says, "Can I talk to him?" So again, my brother Tim comes by my office and he goes, "Are you willing to talk to the mother of the missing girl?" Of course. Of course.
If you're enjoying Untold, like and subscribe on YouTube. You can also rate and follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
So I have to ask this because right when we decided to interview you, my first thought was, I wonder what he thinks about Monument Avenue.
I wonder what he. I
Oh,
know that's
softball
that's a
question.
charge, but I mean, I am an investigative
You
reporter
are,
at
yes,
the core,
indeed.
so I can't help it. I'm like, that was the first thing that came to mind. I was like, as a historian, someone who's tied to Richmond, and that, how do you sit with that? What are your thoughts?
Well, I had about 3 trains of thought pertaining to the whole Monument Avenue question at any given time. As a historian, preservationist, we would have these periodic spasms of let's tear them down or let them rot or let's stop the funding so they can
So when
rust.
they actually came down, wasn't the first time this had.
It wasn't
sparked.
the first time this
Yeah.
came up at all, but but when the tide of history sweeps through your town, there's really only 2 alternatives. You either swim or find a boat, something to cling to, because what's going to happen, you can't stop it. You can't. The waters are going to roll over you. I was sort of a context guy. I thought, well, signs, QR codes, but they're in the middle of the road, and who's going to do that? And also, I thought about the artists. The most interesting statue on Monument Avenue was the Matthew Fontaine Maury. Maury has what I would call, boy, we're going to get letters on this, the Werner von Braun problem, because he was a dedicated man of science, but on the other hand, he also devised what they called a electric torpedo, which was basically something that would sit in the water, and when a ship would hit it, it would blow up. And and that happened. And then he, after the war, he wanted to set up a rump confederacy in Mexico, and thankfully, then Emperor Maximilian got himself shot during the Revolution. So that ended that, and he went to England, and then God forgive, and he came back. But anyway, so what I thought was a metaphor for this whole thing was that his globe had this big globe behind him.
Right.
A friend of mine, as a young woman, thought that was his brain. And then these people, this twisted group of people who were pulling themselves out of a surf presumably after a shipwreck, and there were men and women, and there was a little dog and children and a steer, and when you took it off the plinth and set it down on the road, it really had this aspect of the struggle. What are we going to do now? We're struggling out of the surf to get to an uncertain beach, and what's next? And I think that's where we are, because the statues are gone.
Are you sad to see
Well,
when you drive down Monument? I just wonder, you're someone who appreciates, like you said, the context. I'm not saying that in any way you're supportive of the viewpoints of the people
exactly.
represented. I know that. I think most common decent people are not. But what I wonder is, from a historical perspective, how, I don't know, significant those structures
I wouldn't
were.
describe myself as sad. I mean,
Okay.
I think that it was that those statues represented they weren't put up right after the war. It was in the late 19th, early 20th century that and Maury was the last in 1929. So they reflect attitudes of the time more than they do, because the people that were part of the war were very old and gone by then, and many of them. And so what I felt was, well, I think one way to tell this is Stonewall Jackson, of course, sat there at Boulevard, what's now Arthur Ashe Boulevard, and Monument, and you would have to curve around him. And then for months afterwards, just out of habit, if I was driving down there, I would like turn the wheel a little bit, wait a minute, I have to do that.
Yeah.
Because he's gone. And so I think that eventually there will be people who did not know there were statues there or memorials, and we've got to figure out what's going to happen next. And Richmond being Richmond, and the situation being what it is, I think it's going to be quite a while before anything, if anything, goes up or not replaces them, but somebody comes up with something that's going to satisfy enough people. Public art in the current climate is nearly impossible.
Divisive.
It's divisive because no one can agree, and then you put somebody up, and it turns out they have
Something in their past
something
that
in their
somebody
past
doesn't
that we
like.
didn't know at the time,
Yeah.
or got glossed over.
But do we have any responsibility? I mean, from a historian's perspective, to preserve what were the opinions of that time represented in art or sculpture? I mean, in your mind, was there an appropriate way to manage that, and is that what we did?
Well, we have a statue of Caligula in the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, and so, of course, that's an extreme example. That was several thousand years ago, and he was not a particularly swell fella. And the opinions. Well, here's the thing: being something of a historian, it's a bit short-sighted of us to try to apply our thinking and our more advanced ideas to someone who couldn't possibly know us. They may speak like us, they sort of like us, they may even look like us, but they're not us. The past is a foreign country. And you have to approach that space gingerly, and with knowledge that their knowledge of the world was not necessarily informed by what we believe. And the ones who were sort of were out front, then we know them because they were not with the rest of the herd, and so. But they're individuals. Those are not the way. They're not commonplace. That is what I'm talking about when I talk about history and the stories. This is complicated, and we don't always know what was going on. You don't know necessarily what's going on in people's heads or their hearts, for that
Past
matter.
is a foreign country. I really like that. I'm going to use that line. I'll quote you.
Okay,
I'll give you credit.
I don't think I came up with it, but to say that I did.
Yeah, okay.
It makes me look good.
I think so.
It makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about.
So, I mean, that's an interesting take.